But what it shows you is you get so much more money from
Hey, look
other
at
than
that.
the tax.
We're on.
Right.
And we're labeled correctly.
So all that money goes.
We're doing better.
Karen, what do you think?
I'm not gonna say we're gonna be
Halliburton.
perfect all the time, but
What
we're
is,
doing
what
better.
do you mean Halliburton? Oh, that's, it's, the
Yeah,
Halliburton
it's on.
Bridge was paid for by DOT.
Right, so what they
It's
did,
not, it's not federal.
some of it should have been.
It's not true.
Linda is on vacation. Jack's on vacation, and Jonathan's not feeling well.
Well, you know, the
Federal,
whole
Halliburton's
is
wrong.
running through the schools.
Is it?
Melanie's, you saw that, right?
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah,
The schools are closed Wednesday, right? Wednesday,
yeah,
Thursday.
they got 70 people over.
I'd like to call the meeting for December 20th, 2021 to order. Call to order. Candace?
Candace Bouchard.
Candy Perez.
Josh Kelly.
Todd Shalashi.
Sheila Sedlak.
Steven Sedlak.
Selectmen Bork, Grappo, and Morhart are all excused. Chief, you're not excused. You have to stay. Join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3, the agenda review. Okay, we'd like to move under new business, item C, consideration of possible action for the purchase of the fire department apparatus from item C to item A under new business.
I'll have that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
4-0, unanimous. Approval of minutes for a regular meeting on December 6th, 2021.
So moved.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Oh, go ahead. I'll move it, she'll second, apparently, or the other way around.
Any discussion? All in favor? 4-0, unanimous. Item 5, citizen comments. The Board of Selectmen welcomes public comment. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes or less and may speak only once this round. Anyone? Okay, there'll be another section at the end of the meeting. Town manager report.
Good evening, everybody. As is my usual ritual, I'll go through what's been written into the Board of Selectmen's packets for anybody who's following along online. That is also posted on the town's website. I'll add in any other commentary that may be applicable at this time. As this was written a couple days ago, there are a couple updates to it, and then I'll take questions from the board. So first and foremost, this is a reminder that this Wednesday, that's December 22nd at noon, the request for qualifications comes due for 508 Main Street. If there are any proposals out there that haven't yet been submitted, please make sure that you do get those submitted. Those will be opened afternoon on December 22nd in the town manager's office. And after that time, I'll put together a summary for the Board of Selectmen to be able to look at and review. With the American Rescue Plan Act, I have included, it was not in your original packet, but I did email it to you today, and there's a hard copy that's available here for all of the selectmen, and I have a few extras in case anybody wished to look at it. It is also posted online. That's an update on all of the different 17 American Rescue Plan Act projects that were approved earlier this month, and this is an ongoing set of updates that I will keep current and share with you at least once a month at regular Board of Selectmen meetings. If you have any questions about that, I consider it to be just an extension of my report, so ask away. Certainly, we're seeing business growth here in town. I know that this past weekend, several of us were able to attend a ribbon cutting for Second Home, which is a new wine bar that's opened down Main Street. And I believe that this coming week, or possibly the week after, Be Under Par, which is a virtual golf business, will be opening on Main Street. So there is exciting stuff coming. This is a continuation of a series of businesses that have opened on Main Street in the past several months. Regarding COVID-19, I think we've all heard the news. Hospitalizations rose over the weekend by over 100 individuals, so that's over 800 hospitalizations around the state. The death toll is continuing to rise, and I believe as of today, Omicron was designated to be the most transmitted variant of the virus in the state of Connecticut. So we're at a point right now where we need to be vigilant with masking. It's the small price, from my perspective, that we pay in order to make sure that we're keeping establishments like Town Hall, like the businesses here on Main Street open. So I really do encourage everybody, please, it is a small thing that we can do for each other to make sure that we're all staying out of the hospital, we're staying healthy through the holiday season and beyond. There are a couple other items related to the American Rescue Plan Act that I would like to highlight, namely the economic development item, and that is you had appropriated $50,000 for the hiring of a part-time economic development director as part of the American Rescue Plan Act. That position has been posted. If you, anybody out there, anybody watching us online, or anybody you know is interested in serving in a capacity like that, there's a job description posted online. We're accepting applications in paper to the town manager's office through Wednesday, January 5th at noon, after which time we'll begin to review those applications. We have, you'll note in your packets for the members of the Board of Selectmen that we do have Fire Chief Legassi here today, and we'll talk about the items under the fire department update that I wrote for you in just a little bit. The town newsletter, it has been published online. That's the winter edition of the Winchester Wire. If anyone's looking for it, you can find it on the town website. And they will be delivered to mailboxes around town, every mailbox around town, hopefully, if there are no mistakes, in the next week. And then there are a couple items related to union negotiations listed within your update. We did not have a ratification of the supervisor's union contract before this meeting, and thus it's not on the meeting's agenda tonight. Are there any questions that I can answer for the board? Thank you.
Moving on, Finance Director's report, Bruce.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here with you again. In your packets, I included a copy of the general fund results through November 30th, which represents 42% of the year. I'd like to review a couple of the highlights from that report. First, property tax collections are at $14.4 million through 5 months this year, compared to $13.8 million last year at this time, both approximately 58% of the budget. I want to, as always, recognize the taxpayers for their timely payments of their tax bills. It helps the town function when those payments are made on time. Total revenues are at $17.4 million, or 50% of the budget, compared to $16.6 million last year at this time, which was 48% of the budget. Total expenditures through 5 months are $13.8 million, or 39% of the budget, compared to $12.7 million, or 37% of the budget last year. So with respect to the cash position of the town had $13.2 million in the general fund as of November 30th, with over $12 million of that invested. With respect to capital improvements, number of road projects were worked on during November, the Pratt Street culvert, which is primarily finished, and the lower portion of Upland Avenue was repaired. The Public Works received 2 F-550 pickup trucks, which were part of the fiscal '21 capital improvement budget, and the fire chief pickup truck was also received and paid for this past month. As always, there's ongoing engineering activity and road maintenance. On the Hinsdale School project, through November 30th, $5.6 million has been spent, including $4.5 million to the contractor. The town has applied for $2.4 million in reimbursements from the State Department of Administrative Services as part of the state portion of that project. We've also included a grant, a multi-year grant report for you. It's a one-pager. It's this document here. The major information on that is that we get grants from a number of different sources. Some of them are reimbursable, some of them are recurring, but over the past several years, we've received $16.6 million in grant awards. We've applied for another $1.9 million in grants. We're still waiting to hear for those. We have future opportunities to apply for another 10+ million. And so we're working on that. I think Josh mentioned in his report that that application is due in January. So, but there's quite a bit of grant activity, and we're grateful that we have a grants manager, Allison Pierce, to watch over all of this, and she's already been successful in obtaining some grant monies for us since she came on board. The last item I'd like to cover is the Yankee Institute updated its warning signs report from a couple of years ago, and it's called 2021 Warning Signs. And in these reports, they rank all of the towns in Connecticut with respect to their financial strength. Several years ago in the 2018 report, Winchester was ranked at number 24 out of 169. You want to be ranked with 1 being the top, 169 being at the bottom. So Winchester came in at 24 with a score of 82 out of 100. That put it in the top 15% of the state in terms of financial strength. This recent report uses slightly different criteria to rate all the towns, and it's designed to rate the towns as their state of financial distress. And Winchester came in at number 40 with a score of 66 out of 100. So we were in the top 24%, and understand that though this score, anything below 50 is considered financial distress. So Winchester is not considered to be a town in financial distress. In fact, 15 of the top 40 scores came from Litchfield County. So most of the smaller towns that have small organizations and don't have a lot of pension debt or other bonding rate pretty high. But it was again, it's a recognition that the town has done pretty well over the last, at the current point, there is no reason to consider the town in financial distress. So.
You mentioned the last report was 2018. What's the year that we're number 40? Is it 2021 or
2021, and it's based on fiscal 20 data. So that's already about a year and a half old.
Okay, thank you.
But
They
the
ranked
report can be viewed at the Yankee Institute online. Both reports can be viewed there.
They ranked the pension, they ranked them in 2 separate categories. They ranked the pension debt, and we did very well there, and they ranked overall indebtedness, and we did very well there.
That's right, yeah, because the town hasn't been able to issue
We haven't
any
spent-
debt for, 10+ years. But happy to address any questions you may have.
Just a small question. You mentioned that money's been paid for the Hinsdale School for the contractor. What percentage are we looking for to be reimbursed, Bruce?
The reimbursement rate for eligible expenses is 71.5% or something like that.
Okay, I thought it was that high. Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Katie?
I'd just like to say thank you. I know this is your last official meeting, and I know you'll be around to help out, but thank you for everything you've done.
Well, you're very welcome. It's, last week I was surprised, but I just wanted to, I didn't really have any prepared remarks. I just wanted to say it's been really a capstone of my financial career to be here. And I just really enjoyed working, you know, in this situation, and we have great people here in town hall, and I always recognize it's a team, whatever the results are, as a result of many people working together. And just happy to be part of the team.
Anyone else? Thank
So
you, Bruce.
I'll be around for the presentation at the end.
Does anyone have any correspondence? Moving on to boards and commissions. Steve?
Okay, thank you, Todd. We have 2 resignations this month that we wish to acknowledge. One is Mark Gizzi, a resignation from the Conservation Commission. Apparently it wasn't a good fit for him. You saw the letter in the package. And also from Glenn Albanesius, resigning from the Board of Assessment Appeals, with the caveat that he's got some other responsibilities he's beginning right now, but he wants to be kept in mind for future appointments, and I think we can do that. So we'll acknowledge both those resignations. That's it, Todd.
Thank you. So that will mean we have an opening on the Board of Assessment Appeals, so if anyone is interested in serving on that board, the application is on the town website. Moving on to new business. 21-86, consideration possible action for the purchase of a fire department apparatus.
So Chief, if you'd like to come up front, if it's all right, I will jump in and speak just a little bit before I turn things over to the chief. The board's been mostly apprised of the situation as it's been unrolling, and I know that this has been a few updates in the making. But I want to share with everybody tonight that after the last board meeting, since then, I've had several long conversations with the town attorney, and with his advisement, we approached, really Jamie was able to, Chief Legassi was able to approach the company, which is New England Fire Equipment and Apparatus Corporation, and ask that this terminology be included in the contract that we're considering tonight. And that's: the final purchase of the apparatus is contingent upon the town receiving final appropriation authorizations as per the town of Winchester's charter. So what this gives the Board of Selectmen the opportunity to do is to consider and possibly act on approving the signing off of this proposal, so that we can move forward, we can lock in a price, and we can make sure that the project has some forward progress, while still making sure that we're financially protected in the event that, for any reason going forward, there isn't an authorization made to approve the funding for the fire apparatus.
Yeah, and I think that, if you're done, the important part is locking in the price. The price is gonna go up January 1 between 6 and 8%, so that's another, $50,000. So we're replacing, as if you remember back in March when we met, I did talk about this and bring this up, that we're replacing 2 engines, a 1984 500-gallon, 1,500-gallon per minute pump, open cab, and a 1988 1,500 GPM pump with 1,000-gallon open cab engine with 1 piece, because we don't need the 2 pieces. We'll still have enough to keep up our ISO rating, and this is designed so it can get, it's about 3 to 4 feet shorter than our the next truck to it so we can get into driveways and it's more maneuverable.
So are there any questions in order for the board to be comfortable approving this? Yes.
I think it's important that you review, maybe Bruce will review it, or Josh, is the funding of this. Where we stand now, where we're looking to get the money in the future. Because, I mean, I support the trucks, don't get me wrong, because I know we're supporting one Winchester Center too with some funding that they need. But, and I'm asking this because I think it's really important, we're going to start the budget in January, and it's really important that we're committing future dollars to this, and the more future dollars that we're committing will mean these future dollars are not available to other projects, or if other projects go forward, then we need to find more money.
And I can at least give some basics. I know Bruce is pulling out some other numbers to share with you. But we do already have $300,000 of the $608,000 and change that's required for the purchase of this truck. $300,000 was already approved by the capital improvement plan. We anticipate another $100,000. That's what's been done each year in the past 3 years towards this project. We anticipate another $100,000 being approved through the capital improvement plan. And so the remainder, $208,000 and change, is really the question. We have an opportunity right now to approve some money to go from the American Rescue Plan Act into our general fund, and then have that money allocated through the referendum process. Certainly that it's the board's prerogative where the money comes from ultimately, but that is a chunk of change that's come from the federal government that would allow us to avoid hindering really other projects that might be otherwise allocated through, or have funds allocated for them during the referendum process.
Right, as Josh indicated, so far through fiscal 22 budget, the town has authorized or set aside $300,000 for the project for this fire truck replacement. That is a combination, that's an accumulation of the past 3 fiscal years of $100,000 per year. It was anticipated we'd add another $100,000 in the fiscal 23 capital plan, with the remaining 200 and change coming from the American Rescue Plan funds. I think the tranche that we would be getting or expecting to be getting in June. Is that right?
That's right.
So if that's, when that comes in, then you will essentially have the entire truck apparatus cost funded as of July 1, 2022.
That's correct.
And that'll be $200,000 that will not be available for other ARPA projects. Because there's also, in the original thinking of the committee was also to put $100,000 towards the Winchester pumper as well. So this will be a $200,000.
But I think that 100 is already in, is it in the?
It was not approved in the first
Oh,
one.
not approved in the
No,
first
it's
one,
the
so that
next
would
round.
be coming
It's the
out of the
next round,
second
so
one.
there'll be $300,000
Yeah.
already approved of that.
Right.
Just so, because when you go forward and you have money and you think you have,
Yep.
just want to make sure we all know that the money's is already designated and there won't be any future ability to choose it.
That's correct.
That's true. At this point in time, we have about 45% of the American Rescue Plan funds have been allocated. That leaves us a little wiggle room within the first half of the funds that we've already received, as well as the entire second half, which, as Bruce indicated, will be delivered in June 2022. So, yes, it's true. This is a zero-sum game. There's only so much money that can go to certain projects, but I guess the question before the board really is this a project worth putting that money towards, or are there other projects that you feel are higher priorities within the American Rescue Plan funds? We've designed this question tonight to permit you a little bit more time to think about where you'd like the money to come from. The real question is this enough of a priority that we'd like to lock in a price and figure out the financing of it a little later?
Am I correct that regardless of how we decide to fund it, it still has to come through referendum?
Yes, the final appropriation will have to come through referendum.
Okay.
So we have between now and then to
Do you
figure it out.
need that in the motion, or?
Well, the 100,000 that's in the current capital plan will have to come through our budget in, May, June.
Right,
But the 200,000 coming from the American Rescue Plan comes through the
Through
vote
us.
of this board,
yeah.
It's not a referendum.
Right, so there is no overall referendum, like, I don't know, 8, 10 years ago, we had a referendum for a fire truck, it stood by itself, and everybody voted on the fire truck, and then we paid it through $80,000 worth of financing for like 5 or 6 years in the budget.
Yeah,
But
I
there
was
is-
just reacting to the suggestion from the town attorney that's in our package, that the town cannot pay for a vehicle without proper budget allocations being made at referendum.
Right, so I think he considers the
The
budget
budget.
referendum.
The budget
Yeah,
process.
The budget
referendum.
Our capital improvement plan process as a budget, as a referendum.
Not a separate referendum.
No.
Correct.
Okay.
If we don't agree to the 100,000, then we would have to do something else.
Yep. Well, if you're looking for a motion, Todd, I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the proposal to purchase a new pumper for the Winchester, for the Winston Fire Department.
Is there a second? Any further discussion? Jamie, will you be examining selling the old trucks?
They'll go out like any piece of equipment does. These older apparatus, they're worth basically scrap metal. I think we've talked at one point at some, our camps had got rid of newer trucks and they were, much better condition for $5,000 a piece. So, these trucks, in the past, we've just put them out whenever the town has a bid opening and, there'll be 1,000 or two. I mean, it's,
Okay.
Yeah, pizza
unfortunately.
Pizza oven,
Exactly. Some want to buy it for that, so.
pizza oven.
Anything
Tires.
else? All in favor? 4-0. Passes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So I can sign this? Is that, how does this?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You allowed to sign it? Or else the town manager won't sign it.
Presentation on the state of town roadway infrastructure.
If the team wants to come on up. For the selectmen here, I apologize. We do have one of our new technological upgrades here behind you. You might need to move it around a little bit to be able to see it with a lot of ease. But it's available. And hopefully it's helpful to members of the audience. If you need to pivot around, see around the pillar here, please don't hesitate to do so.
You want it completely dark, or?
I think we wanted some lights on, yeah.
Yeah, that's good, right? Just like that.
Yeah, this is perfect. Okay, so, good evening, everybody. We're here today, and actually, I guess we should start with some introductions, and then I'll go ahead and introduce the presentation. But for those of you who don't know me, I'm Josh Kelly, I'm the town manager.
Jim Rollins, the Director of Public Works.
Public Works Project Administrator.
Bruce Stafford, Finance Director.
And so we're here today to present, not just to the Board of Selectmen, but to all members of the public who are here in person and joining us on the live stream, or maybe even a recording later on, to talk a little bit about the state of the town's roadway infrastructure as it currently, has been in the past, as it currently stands, and where we might be able to go into the future. So with that, we have quite a bit of material to get through with you tonight, and we'll dive right in. And we'll start with a historical review. So, through a myriad of different circumstances, that includes past resident, staff, elected official decisions that have been made. They've led to minimal investment in the town's infrastructure. I don't think there's anybody here who's driven on town roadways or have seen the state of them who can say that every street that we have here in Winstead and Winchester is in pristine condition. We know that we have some work to do, and it's these minimal investments that have led to the state of some of these roads. For example, in fiscal fiscal year 2014, so that's the year spanning 2013 into 2014. An infrastructure presentation from the then town manager remarked that preventative maintenance investment, oh, sorry,
You probably
might I
need
have
the, you need the microphone.
yeah, the microphone. We'll pass this around as we go along. But back in fiscal year 2014, it was remarked that preventative maintenance investment has been insignificant, roads showing the results of years of neglect. So over time, things have changed. In 2016, we did conduct a paving assessment study that was performed to identify conditions of roadways, and that study identified that approximately 70% were in either a failed, somewhere between a failed and a fair condition, and only 30% were in a good or an excellent condition. And we'll talk a little bit more about what those numbers mean, what that scale looks like as we go along in this presentation. In the years since, the town's been working diligently to make much needed investments with limited funding at its proposal. But it's because of this limited funding that we've only been able to make as much progress as we had. Progress has been marked, progress has been visible, but it's still slow. So what you have here in front of you, and it's difficult to see from the audience, it's difficult even for us to see here on the computer. It's a lot of work that's been done between fiscal year 2015 and fiscal year 21. And certainly as we go through the slides, I know our Director of Finance here will chime in to talk a little bit more about specifics. But you can see, and the reason I wanted to include this master list, even if it's hard to read the individual information while you're sitting here in person, there's a lot of work that's been done in that time. We're talking only about really the last 6 years here, and it's a wall of labor that's really gone into the engineering, the actual paving itself, a lot of planning, and certainly a lot of time. And we'll talk also a little, and as we look at these projects, I want to make sure that everybody has a visual representation of what has gone into making the roadway improvements that have occurred in the past 6 years. So in the 2015 to 2018 range, this is an entire look at the town. All of those little colored dots that you see throughout the map, those are all different improvements that we were able to make along the way, or that we've had the opportunity to have the gas company make on our behalf. And we have also a closer look here at Winstead itself. This is Winstead 2019 to 2020. You get a little bit of a sense, or Winchester, you get a little bit of a sense of the different roadways that have been done just in the last 2 years alone. Quite a bit in and of itself, but there's a lot more to be done. And then, this is the zoomed in version of Winstead. You can see here, this is what was done in the 2015 to 2018 range. And then more recently in the 2019 to 2020 range. Again, that's a number of colored lines. That's a lot of money, time, and investment that's really gone into these roads, but there's a lot more that aren't colored. I don't know if either of you would like to speak a little bit about some of the data.
So the two-page chart that had all the roads listed, this summarizes that. So the blue bars represent work done during fiscal 10 through fiscal 15, that 6-year period. And in terms of road projects, we had 6 projects underway, but in the last 6 years, 16 through 21, the orange bars, we have had 52 projects that were worked on. On the right side, you see that we did 2 bridges during the first 6 years of the 12-year study or accumulation of costs and projects. And in the last 6 years, we've done 10 bridges and culverts have been worked on. So quite a bit more work done in the last 6 years compared to the previous 6 years. So this tells you shows you the funding levels for again, comparing those 2 6-year periods. The blue being fiscal 10 through fiscal 15, and the orange being fiscal 16 through fiscal 21. Town dollars spent, $600,000 in the first period, over $4 million in the second period. Grant monies received, $949,000 in the first period. In the second period, $4.4 million. Totals are $1.6 million in the first 6 years, and in the second 6 years, $8.7 million. So it gives you an idea of how much more work has been done recently compared to the first part of the last decade. So different kinds of treatments have different costs, and as well as different projects have different costs. So you see that this shows you the spending or the investment by fiscal year. And really, our largest investments came in 2019 and 2020. And a lot of it is in the bridge and culverts. And so the big orange bar in 2019 was the state repairing or replacing the Hollowbird Bridge. That took almost $3 million of state money. And so that was a big improvement there. The bridges and culverts that involved in 2020 was Lanson Road culvert, and then the Sucker Brook Bridge. Again, a lot of money was, and both of those were, we received grants from the state for that. So the gray bars are work on pavement, and quite a bit of pavement work was done in 2019, again, also 2018, 2020, and in 2021. So the blue is engineering work. There's engineering going on every year. They can't do the other work until the engineering's done. And you might see a little bit of an orange part of each bar, which has to do with drainage and other work. So, but that gives you the composition or investment by fiscal year. Now, there are different treatments. These are the primary treatments involved in the road work, and both Jim and Bart can explain this. This has to do with the costs per mile. And HIPAR, or hot in place asphalt recycling, is a very economical way to go. It works out to about $85,000 per mile. And shim and pave is another fairly economical treatment, $96,000 per mile. When we go to mill and pave, which involves taking more of the surface off the roadway and recycling it, that's up to $202,000 per mile. And when you have to reconstruct a road, the costs get very expensive. Now, this bar on the right this is based on the actual projects that we took place over the last 6 years. And we had only a few projects that involved reconstruction. And was it Overlook Road? Yeah. Overlook Road was the primary one there, and there was a lot of drainage involved. So that reconstruction involves drainage costs. That was a road that pretty much had to be, the drainage had to be fixed on it, and then before the road could be reconstructed. So those costs could be as high as $1 million per mile, but we think, you know, we're working with something, maybe half of that. That sounds about.
It depends.
Yeah, that's right. It really depends on the individual road circumstances. So, but what we're trying to do, or what Jim and Bart are trying to do, is plan the road work so that we avoid reconstruction whenever possible. We don't want a road to get that bad because we know that it becomes cost prohibitive. The next one just shows you the number of miles that have been able to be treated in each one of these treatments in HIPAR, hot in place, asphalt recycling. We were able to do it just over six miles that 1 year that we did that. Over 3.7 miles for peel, shim, and pave, and then 3.28 miles for mill and pave, and just a very small amount of reconstruction, which was just about a half a mile. That's what's been done in the last 6 years. So I think those gives you an idea of some of the nature of the road repair work that was done over the last 6 years.
So that covers some of the past conditions, and now we'll talk a little bit more about what the present conditions now look like.
So you've got two pie charts up in front of you. The one on the left is what our first pavement assessment showed. And if you look, we've got 2% of the roads are considered completely failed. 50% of the roads were in poor condition. 17% were fair, 26% were good, and only 4% were excellent. So through the actions of the town, we took our pavement assessment, and the first thing that the engineers recommended was routine and preventive maintenance on the roads that weren't failed, so that you would slow their deterioration down, hoping that we'd be able to catch up on, some of the needed work before those roads needed to be completely reconstructed at very high cost. So we started off kind of slow in making progress, but we finally gotten through that first stage of real just taking the low-hanging fruit, the cheap stuff, and slowing deterioration, and started working on the lesser roads. So our next assessment was in 2019, and we had doubled the amount of excellent roads. We'd cut in half the amount of failed roads, and then we significantly improved the roads that were good and the roads that were fair, and significantly cut the roads that were poor. So the trend is in the right direction. Keep in mind, we went after the low-hanging fruit on this, so the progress was pretty fast and relatively inexpensive. But, it's slow, but it's moving. So we've made a lot of progress, but the roads that are rated failed and poor are here rated 1 and 2 and 3. On this slide, we have rated, those that are rated 1 and 2. Now, keep in mind when you see these roads up on the screen, some of these roads are only partially failed or partially poor. It's not necessarily the entire road. But you can get a pretty good idea of what's rated 1 through 3, and that's where the big money costs are. You can do maintenance on, the 4s through the 10s or 9s, but the 1s, 2s, and 3s are a lot of work. So we also have, it's interesting, the title of this presentation was about the roadways, and that's because the roadways are more than just the roads. We've got roads, bridges, culverts, signs, guide rails, drainage. There's a lot to it, swales. But bridges are a very significant cost, and they take several years from start till completion. And they break down the roads into two categories: those between 6 feet and 20 feet spans, and then on the right is the column where the bridge spans are more than 20 feet. And the reason they break those up into two different columns is the funding sources are different. The state local bridge program takes care of the smaller of the two bridges, and they have a reimbursement rate of roughly 50-50. The federal local bridge program is the state administering federal money, and they pick up 80% of the cost. The town picks up 20%. So we're leveraging our money somewhere between 5 to 1 and 1 to 1 by doing bridges, and that's one of the reasons we're able to get these things going, is because we have some cost share. Whew, sidewalks. Who wants to take on this one? Sure.
So, town law, that's between the charter and the ordinances, it requires that the owner of the property immediately abutting a sidewalk is the person that is supposed to care for that sidewalk. And is generally responsible for both its maintenance in terms of snow removal, ice removal, et cetera, and its replacement. Presently around town, I'm sure that everybody here has an anecdote about some particular site. There are many sidewalks that are in disrepair with not a lot of action being taken to remedy that failure. And so in instances where these sidewalks connect major public facilities, such as our schools, such as our Main Street, such as other emergency shelters, just to name a few, the board may need to consider whether that current practice is acceptable, of hoping that our ordinances and that our charter are going to be followed in this manner, or if there's some more greater action that needs to be taken. On the item of drainage, I'm going to ask Jim to jump in if I misstep. But in a number of places around town, Hollyburton Ave and Oakdale are really just a couple examples. Drainage pipes are in such bad shape that they're collapsing, they're causing sinkholes, and in other places around town, there's no drainage to speak of. And in many cases, this causes property damage. In some cases, this causes environmental damage, such as around our lakes, our natural resources. And so as we move along with our roadway repair, as Jim pointed out, it's holistic. And we're not just looking at roads, we're looking at sidewalks, we're looking at drainage, we're looking at all of these different components that come together. And drainage really has been a feature of that. But of course, as with all of the things that we've mentioned tonight, more investment is needed in order to greatly and markedly improve drainage in many of these areas around town. And now I'll ask on Bruce's expertise to jump in if I miss anything on these couple of funding slides that we have. Federal funding is available for a lot of specific projects right now, but road work isn't necessarily eligible under a number of programs, including the American Rescue Plan Act. You heard us talk about that tonight regarding fire apparatus, regarding some of the other items, economic development, social services, and it specifically does not permit us to spend the $3.1 million that we acquired on road work. Build Back Better grants can't be applied towards this. The coronavirus relief funds cannot be applied towards road work. So the federal infrastructure bill, I'm sure that there may be questions floating around about what that's going to look like for the town. At this point in time, we don't really know how much of that money is going to be passed directly on to municipalities. We don't know how much is going to be allocated towards road work. And the reality is that this is a federal infrastructure bill. This is not something that was passed by the state of Connecticut that's likely to have municipalities in mind. There's a lot of federal roadways, I'm sure, that we all have in mind that are of concern, that they have failing bridges too, they have failing roadways, and those items need investment from their perspective. The likelihood that a lot of this money will go towards municipal roadways, I would say that those odds are pretty slim. So the town is pursuing as many competitive grants as it can. Certainly, we already touched on a few of those grants that are offered through the state and federal bridge program, and there are more. There's a LoCIP program. If this is through state funding, that's the local capital improvement program. And there's LOTCIP, which is the local transportation capital improvement program. And both of these items have provided the town in the past with regular funding, and will continue to do so, we hope, with the authorization of the state legislature, to make sure that we have some supplemental dollars to be able to put towards our roadways. But we've been tapping into these resources over time. These are known commodities to us, and we've been putting every dollar that we can towards those roadways, towards the work that we've been describing to you tonight. And this is the progress that we've been able to make as we've been able to demonstrate it to you. And there's still a long ways to go. So looking forward, there are a couple different approaches that we can take to progressing our infrastructure to a new phase, to an improved phase. Currently, the town's approaching road repair through what's called pay-as-you-go. That means that we're taking money through our regular operating budget, we're putting it towards roadways, and that money's getting invested just as quickly as we can. In some cases, that means we need to do engineering as preliminary legwork. In some cases, that means we already have something ready to go, shovel ready, and we can get asphalt on the ground. This is really a slow pace approach. There's a small amount of money that's dedicated to infrastructure with each annual budget, and that's the amount of money that's able to move forward. So there are some pros and cons to all of these different methods, right? To any method that you might try. The pro in this case with a slow paced approach is that it provides the town with slow and steady progress on road projects. It's tangible, you can see it, but the con is that it's slow. It could be hindered in any given year depending on how the board and the public view infrastructure investments, how taxes are viewed, whether a tax increase needs to be made in a given year. There are a lot of different ways that the budget can be impacted as we go forward. And it's not something that produces widespread, highly visible results very quickly. And lastly, it's a very inefficient way to fund your larger $1 million plus projects, and I'm sure that Jim and Bart can name a few off the top of their head. Yeah, that would be pretty large, and maybe we'll get to naming some of those in a second. But for those larger projects where we're only allocating several $100,000 every year in the operating budget, we can't fund one of those larger projects in a given year with the amount that's currently being allocated. So then there's the fast-paced approach. That means putting greater investment, greater amounts of money, greater amounts of time into infrastructure that can help us achieve quality roads in the next 10 to 15 years. Continuing with that slower pace approach requires, as you saw, over 3 years, there was some improvement, but the improvement was marginal, it was modest, and we expect with our projections that we would need a minimum of another 30 years of investment before real progress is made that could otherwise be made with a greater level of investment, that fast-paced approach. So we're really here today, as we started out, to pose a few questions to the Board of Selectmen for your consideration, and so that you have an opportunity to discuss amongst yourselves and with members of the public really where public opinion is on these items right now. We went from extremely minimal investment pre-2015 to light to moderate pay-as-you-go approach post-2015. Obviously, that's an improvement. The question is the public satisfied with that current rate of progress? Another question is, how do we plan for the next 5 to 10 years of road improvement? And lastly, do the selectmen agree with the sentiment that our infrastructure requires increased investment in order to restore roadways in a fast-paced manner? So that's a lot for you all to digest right now. Certainly we have a few proposals for next steps and outreach that we would like to do in the event that the board would like to hear more about greater investment in roadways, more of a close look at a fast-paced approach to that investment. We welcome any questions that you have about our presentation at this time, and I certainly welcome any further comments that the rest of our team here has to make.
You know, if you can back up one slide, Josh. One of the things we have to remember is we've definitely made some pretty good progress in a lot of ways, but we absolutely went after the low-hanging fruit. The area that is causing, you know, the biggest amount of problems and cost is the drainage aspect of these projects. Investment in drainage is really a great investment because that's what keeps the roads from deteriorating, is if you have a good, dry, solid road base. So we definitely have made some good progress in the last 5 or 6 years. The low-hanging fruit, the less expensive treatments. We start going after the bigger roads, you know, the Elm Streets, the Case Avenues, the Hollibirds. You're talking $1 million to as much as $4 million maybe for Hollibird by the time you put everything in there that has to go. It's, you know, so you're looking at real money coming up. We've been putting small money in, and so if you're happy with the pace we have now, that's only because we've been going after the less expensive projects. Once you start throwing in an Elm Street, you're gonna say goodbye to chip seal, you're gonna say goodbye to crack seal, you're gonna say goodbye to, you know, shimming and paving, because there's zero money left, and it would take 2 years just to do Elm Street. So I just wanted to communicate that point so you have a point of reference to make your decisions on. That was it.
Any other comments from the team at this point? That's our presentation, folks. We'll take any questions that you might have.
Questions?
Can you tell me what's going on with Bridge Street right now? I mean, I saw a four-wheeler trying to get up Bridge Street, and it's the water. Is that a drainage issue that's going on that's not resolved? Because I saw them doing work there before.
Yeah, okay, so I couldn't quite hear what you said. You saw
Sorry,
what?
Sorry, my problem, sorry. So I watched a four-wheel truck try and get up Bridge Street, and he barely made it up. I know there was work that was being done there before. What was being done?
Okay, that's a great question. So Bridge Street, for those that aren't familiar with where Bridge Street is, there's an intersection where Bridge Street goes straight up from Main Street.
Point. Bridge Street meets Route 44.
So it comes up off of Main Street, and it crosses Prospect and Depot and Willow Streets. And right where the road starts to get steep, just past the intersection, there is water that bleeds out of the ground and then this time of year freezes. So we dug that up. We believe there's an underground spring there because we've.
And then that also in front of the liquor store. That's a whole other.
That's another one. We don't know the source of that one. For a while, we thought it was drainage coming from behind that wall or the resident's property, but they did some repair work on it and they looked into it, and that doesn't seem to be the
Yeah.
cause. Again, it could be just a spring surfacing. That hillside is really wet.
Yeah.
So we actually cut across that road on Bridge Street where you're talking about.
Right.
And put in a drainage pipe, and we thought we had it, and the water just comes back up.
Right.
Usually, for a couple of weeks here in the winter, you'll after you get a rainstorm, you'll get it bleeding through. Then as the ground freezes, it locks it up, and we don't have a problem all winter, but there's these transition times. And we don't know what to do with it, and we haven't invested a huge amount of effort because that intersection has a whole design and reconstruction configuration that we're working on, so it just doesn't make sense to put
No,
all
I
your.
just know that the work had been done, and then I saw this,
Yeah.
I'm like, wow.
We really hoped that drain was gonna
Okay.
do the job. I mean, we put a perforated pipe all the way across the road, and it just bleeds out just below even below the drain, above the drain,
Right.
everywhere. We don't understand it.
Right.
Go ahead, Candy.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think that, you know, in your next steps, you know, from all of you, I think we should keep going. We've been talking about this for a very long time, and I think we should have you know, at least get some proposals out on the table of what it will look like, and be able to react to, you know, the concrete examples included and whatnot, going forward into the new year, and either move or don't move, because we've been, you know, working so hard for so long, and that, like you said, those $1 million roads are coming up, and there's no way to do it within our current configuration, or if we're gonna wait and nobody wants to move, you know, go faster, then it will have to wait.
Yeah, I guess my comment would be, first of all, thank you for all this information.
I know it was a lot, but
No, I'm not saying it's a lot, I'm saying it's very helpful, so
Okay, good.
I'm glad for it. When we tell people, you know, we're working on a roads plan, and we've been telling them that for 2 or 3 years now. You know, the question is, from them is, you know, where's my street on the list? That's the first thing they want to know, and then when you start talking about all the needs we have, it's like, oh, how much? Okay, so those two questions. I think the first one that needs a little more work for us is what I think you're intending to do, and what Candy and Candace are talking about is, what does it look like? Jim, you talk about the low-hanging fruit and how easy it is to do that, and how the tough roads that need reconstruction, you know, eat up the whole budget. So it seems like there's got to be some sort of balance in there. We can't just do $1 million roads and potholes and all the rest, you know. So hopefully what you give us in January and beyond is, what does the list look like in your opinion? And then we've got we'll make the decisions on where we go from there. But appreciate all the work that's gone into this so far. We're on the right, we're on the right road.
Josh, can you bring up slide 14?
You got it.
As this goes out to the public, I just want to make sure that everyone understands the gravity of the work that needs to be done. So from 16 to 21, we've done about a little under 14 miles.
That's correct.
Our paved roads are 80-plus miles.
About 76 paved and then a few more dirt.
Okay, so we'll just talk
Yeah.
about the paved.
But how many are not in excellent and good? So what's the non-excellent and good mileage? Because we've only done 14 miles. So what's left? Because if they're excellent and good, we're not gonna be addressing those right away. We're gonna be addressing all the others. So what's the other mileage
Okay.
block?
But yeah, I just want to make sure that,
I
we've
understand
done,
it's 14 miles. and it's-
we've made great strides, but there's a lot left to do, and I want to make sure people understand that. And the other question that I have is on slide 19. Lanson Drive was just done, correct?
Yep.
So we've got that listed as an 8, not a 9. Any
So-
particular reason?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that question. The bridge ratings are a little confusing. The way it was explained to me by the DOT bridge crew when I asked that exact same question, and they said, well, the minute we sign off on the final inspection, it's a 9. It's never gonna be a 9 for another
Kinda like driving
day
a car
after
off
that.
the lot.
It just goes to an 8. I think that must be how they must be like a tracking method they have.
Okay.
It's a
So it's-
used car then.
It's right, maybe that's what it is, there you go.
Yeah.
So that explains
Okay.
why both West Road and Lanson are still 8s. Yep.
Again, I applaud you for all the effort in putting this all together. It's been a long time for us to kind of come up with a presentation that we think can go out to the public and really get their feedback. I think that's the most important aspect of it, is really communicating this to all the people so they really understand. It's not a Board of Selectmen decision, it's a town decision. And so that's really one of the most important things. We can look at how to finance it, but the judgment and the vote is in the hands of the townspeople. I'm looking forward to, getting the options out to the residents and having them really chew on this and see where we go from here.
Anyone else? Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Bart. Bruce? Moving on to item C, under new business, the approval of the Board of Selectmen meeting schedule for 2022. Everyone should have it in their packet. We have 4 Tuesday meetings due to holidays.
Just note, January 3rd is right out of the gate, because New Year's is celebrated the week before that by staff.
Can I get a motion to approve the meeting schedule?
Yeah, I move we approve the meeting schedule for 2022 as presented.
Thank you, Steve.
Second?
Candace has the second. Any discussion? All in favor? 4-0. Motion passes. Our next round of citizen comments, the Board of Selectmen welcomes public comment. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes or less and may speak only once this round. Anyone?
I had a letter addressed to the mayor. I was wondering when that was going to be read.
That's the one I gave you.
Yeah, that's right. Mr. Jones, that letter will be distributed to the Board of Selectmen. If you'd like it to be read publicly at a meeting, we can ensure that that's done at the next public Board of Selectmen meeting.
Well, how about this Board of Selectmen meeting?
Certainly as public comment, I suppose we could read it into the record.
Yep, we can do that.
Okay. Give me just a moment. I'll make sure that the letter's brought up. If there are other public comments, I suppose we can move on to those and come back to this one while I...
Anyone else wish to speak? Glenn?
Yeah, Glenn Alicius, 229 Granville Road. I just want to take a moment and say thank you to Sheila for her many years of service. She's going to be retiring at the end of this month, and I've had the honor of spending the past 5 weeks in the office learning and gaining appreciation for what she does and how she does it. And I think that the town owes you a debt of gratitude, Sheila, for the 20-plus years that you sat up front, taking good notes, and been an awesome representation of what this town really is all about. So for me, thank you.
You're supposed to take a little bit longer with that, Glenn.
That was good.
Do we have anyone else who wishes to speak?
Todd, I'm having trouble finding it.
I can, why don't we just go to selectmen comments and reports and we can come back to that?
Okay, that's fine. That'd be fine.
So I just want to give you an update. So we all know that all the light heads on all of the lights from Main Street and the park have been replaced with LED, thanks to Eversource, as well as they painted all of the poles. And now you'll see the new holiday decorations that we have up with the bows and the battery, and the garlands are actually operated by batteries because we can't use power in the poles because Eversource won't repair the plugs. It's ever since they took over from CLMP. So we can no longer have the snowflakes up there, but you know, we found an alternate method, which is battery-operated garlands. So, you know, just find another way. Also want to thank JB Appliance. They actually installed all of the lighting on the trees and the medians. Last year we had a bit of a failure with the lights. These are commercial grade, so hopefully these will work. We ordered a little too few, so we'll actually get a little bit more lights next year. We have a tree missing, and then we didn't complete the other median, but I think it really looks beautiful. And I don't know if we need any more holiday decorations, the garlands decorate on the side, but I think everyone so far has been pleased with, you know, the look of them. I also want to thank everyone that attended the Northwest Community Bank's winter hay rides. They were a lot of fun. That happened on Sunday. We actually were able to grab a Santa that was driving by in a red pickup truck, and he rode with us. But Northwest Community Bank gave out mittens and coloring books and hot cocoa to a lot of the children that came by. It was a lot of fun event on Sunday.
And you gave away a gift certificate too, right?
Oh, but I'm not, that'll be announced. So Friends of Main Street held it's called, we're trying to make Main Street your Christmas store, is really the theme of it. We were able to engage 20 businesses around downtown. Actually, Park Place was on, Park Place Hardware and Park Place. We have hair salon that was on Elm. We had a couple of businesses in Whiting Mills, and then the remainder of the business, we had one business, a new hair salon at Mad River Lofts, and the rest on Main Street. So it was really exciting to be able to get 20 businesses all together to work towards that. We did 13 days of radio advertising, and we did, Facebook posts about those businesses. But and each one of the businesses donated something towards a gift basket. It's probably between $500 and $600 for meals for the restaurants, some New James, a Tributary, Second Home Lounge, Little Red Barn Brewers. So we did pick us a winner on Saturday, and she will be announced Wednesday in the Friends of Main Street newsletter. That was exciting.
I think you gave a hint.
It's a female. And her winning ticket was from Mama Fo's, and she also purchased at Park Place Hardware. You had to buy at 2 different businesses on Main Street, but you had 12 days to do it, so it was a lot of fun. So we tied it to the 12 days of Christmas too, sort of thing, so it was a lot of fun.
Candy, anything?
No, not right now, you got the letters.
Okay. We'll go back to the letter.
Yes, and my apologies for the delay, and my apologies for not getting this to the board sooner. We did receive this. This is dated December 15th, 2021, so last week I received this, and it was my expectation to deliver it to the Board of Selectmen, just a little delayed in some of these items. The letter is addressed to the mayor. While most and this is from Stu Jones, of Stu Jones Restoration. While most towns court and subsidize industry, Winstead has a deliberate policy of snuffing out vital, quote-unquote, homegrown industries. The Planning and Zoning Board has made the present industrial use of 201 East Lake Street, Stu Jones Restoration, 210 East Lake Street, also Stu Jones Restoration, and 249 Rockwell Street, Sterling Sintered, and 227 Rockwell Street, B&D Landscaping, grandfathered for the present use, but once businesses are dissolved, they will revert to town single-family, TSF zoning, except for 201 East Lake Street, which could become a brewery with a special exemption, but never the present automotive. But never the present automotive. This destroys the owner's equity, eliminates jobs, and makes the future of these buildings and property unsustainable, which is not fair or reasonable. The conversion from industrial to town single family would be prolonged and ugly. I have included my statement and photos presented to the zoning board on December 13th, 2021, and then he provided the link for the meeting, or for the meeting recording. Please review all of this information and share it with your fellow select persons, as the zoning board is appointed by the selectmen, so the buck stops with you. Looking forward to your reaction concerning all of this, Stu Jones. And I'll provide a hard copy for all the members of the selectmen, Board of Selectmen.
Can you use the microphone there?
Oh, I don't know if I need one, but.
No.
No, they can't hear you, they can't hear you on,
At
outside
home,
here,
at home on the recordings.
I just wanted to say that I myself dropped that envelope off on the 15th, and the administrative secretary did put it into the mayor's file to hand deliver it to you. So I'm not sure how, Josh, you were in charge of the envelope. It was directed to the mayor.
Yes, I did receive it.
You did,
Yes.
okay. Just wanted to make sure you
Yep.
did.
Yep, I
Okay.
received it.
Now, just
Thank
as
you.
a matter of administrative policy, so
Okay.
everybody knows, for the future reference too.
Okay.
Generally speaking, any materials that are to be disseminated to all the selectmen will come to me first. So actually,
Okay.
at the mayor's request, it was his request that I disseminate this information. I simply escaped my notice that it hadn't made it
Okay.
into the packet
I
today.
appreciate that, thank you.
No problem.
Steve? Candy, anything?
No, just Merry Christmas, everybody.
I just wanted to mention that Candy and I represented the town this past weekend at Forest View Cemetery for Wreaths Across America. And I also wanted to wish everyone a safe and healthy holiday, safe and happy new year. And that's about all I have. Steve, anything?
Move we adjourn.
Second,
All in favor? 4-0.
thank you.
Can I say one thing before you adjourn?
Wait, just adjourn, so.
Stu Jones here. That letter that I wrote you, it talks about snuffing out old industry, and you, the board, knows about the problem with the old industry. It doesn't just turn into residential. It goes through a prolonged process of dying, the town assuming it, and then the town trying to do something with it. And this is a long, ugly process, as I said. And I just can't understand why it's happening. Think about it.
Thank you.
Those minutes, okay. neighbors up at the southern.